position. Annie Power at the last race down. Annie Power has gone but in front of the last length. Melanie
By the first time, they're running up towards the finish, and he's mistaken the winning post. He's mistaken the winning post completely, Roger Lockwood, and Hoyt.
Yeah, from Archibald, Hardy Eustace dictates his title, but Archibald is flattened out in second. Then he's going down right by, he's beginning to power. He's drifting off the true line. He's flying, and this was coming home. Sprinter's a going to win his fourth Betfair Chase, and Cordo Star is still the king. Cordo Star wins.
Hello and welcome to Tailed Off. This is a no-holds-barred podcast that dives headfirst into the wonderfully weird world of horse racing. Whether you're a curious newbie like me or just looking to sharpen your skills, we're here to guide you through it all. From betting basics to understanding the horses, the jockeys, the rules, and learning how to study the form and play smarter bets, we've got you covered. But this isn't just about stats and strategy. We'll keep it fun with plenty of banter along the way. This is just a casual conversation between mates. Now, full disclosure, I cannot call myself an expert. Far from it. Consider me the everyman of the group. I'm here to ask the questions that you might be thinking and learning alongside you. Luckily for us all, I'm joined by two true enthusiasts who really know their stuff, Duncan and Elliot. I've known these guys for years, unfortunately for them, and trust me when I say their knowledge and passion for horse racing is nothing short of fascinating. So saddle up, get comfortable, and let's dive into the world of horse racing, tailed off style. How you doing though, you all right?
All good. How's things?
We're good, ready to get started.
I thank you for not saying happy 2025. I've heard that every day this week, so I think we can safely say
we still
that.
saying Happy New Year. No, we stopped ages ago.
Yeah.
I know, but
Just
it's
think
got to be
it's
done.
now.
It's got to be done. So, review section. So this is one of the couple of sections that's a consistent section of each of the podcasts. So I know that we had a couple of weeks off or a couple of weekends off due to bad weather. So shall we have a quick look back in terms of races and key race results? What have we got?
Yeah, so I think it's probably first just touching on the state of the abandonments and probably the first weekend in the new year. We didn't get any racing on ITV, which is a pretty bad state of affairs. And that's kind of at the BHA's door, really, because they've set up what's called premierisation, which was launched pretty much a year ago, to very little fanfare and promotion. And it's meant to do a good thing for horse racing. It's meant to showcase the best races on a Saturday afternoon without having split screens or triple screen central, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. But what it's done is when you get a couple of those key meetings called off, you're left with nothing to fall back on. So I think they can learn a lesson from that, and I think they are trying to be a bit more agile going forward, and hopefully that's the last blank Saturday we'll have on ITV, and hopefully the weather improves from here and we get some racing back on.
So I'm not going to lie and pretend that I watch horse racing live TV every weekend. So you're telling me it was blank the whole day, the whole weekend?
Yeah, well, so you've obviously got ITV Racing, which is free to air for everyone. Then there are a couple of paid channels, Sky Sports Racing and Racing TV. So they still had racing on their own channels, but they were much later in the day because the BHA are blocked out between, I think it's like 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, just the key races. So the other races were so late that ITV basically would have come on for one race and come back off again. So
yeah, okay, makes sense.
what they should be doing now is putting more all-weather fixtures on in the winter time, because we're going to get abandonments, and at least we have something to watch on ITV, which is what we want.
I agree. Yeah, I mean it was way too cold for jumps, that's for sure.
Both the colour.
We all know we love the jumps. Come on.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But yeah, there was a couple of races that's probably worth touching on over the last week. Going back to the previous Sunday, there was the Racing Post Novice Chase at Naas, and it was a pretty good winner in Ile Antique. Was an okay hurdler, didn't probably hit the top level, but seems to be a better chaser. I don't know what you made of it, Duncan. Won pretty comfortably from the front.
Yeah, I think the first thing to call out as well, I'd say as well, I know we're obviously the first episode of the podcast, but we're obviously coming up towards, and it will be coming up a lot more, I'm sure, as we get further and further into this, but around Cheltenham. So some of the horses that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks and months will be leading up to the greatest festival on earth.
The sacred week.
As we say, the mecca of horse racing, basically. So
Cool.
everyone descends drunkenly onto Cheltenham, and all the poor sods that live around there will get absolutely just pelters all week. So we look forward to that. But yeah, no, going back to what you were saying, Al. Yeah, interesting to see it in Atlantic, how well he did for a chase debut as well. So be interesting to see, does he go to Cheltenham? Which race? Or do you have an expectation of where you think he'd go?
Yeah, well, I was listening to Paul Townend on the road to Cheltenham with Lydia Hislop and Ruby Walsh the other day, and he was pretty confident if it's soft enough, he'll go for the Arkle. Strongly run race, might even make all in that like he did the other day at Naas. So, clearly wants a bit of dig in the ground, but now they haven't got the Grade 1 intermediate trip, which used to be the Turners. It's now a handicap, so that kind of pushes horses either to the Arkle or to the Brown Advisory. So that's where I expect him to go, but I thought he won well. But the ground was apparently very bad, so maybe excuses for those in behind.
What, hard or?
No, like just desperately
like heavy ground.
Really,
If it's in
really
Ireland,
heavy.
expect
Wasn't
heavy
very-
ground. I just think heavy.
Okay.
Too much Guinness in the ground, I think.
Yeah, that's what I say.
But yeah, I think that was the first main race, and then there were a couple over the weekend just gone. Thankfully, the BHA did learn from their lesson of the week before and were able to save one of the key races, which was the Grade 2 Taunton Novices Chase, which is usually run at Wetherby. That fell by the wayside, and amazingly, Foss came to the rescue, which is notoriously one of the wettest tracks in the country, right on the west coast of Wales, basically right on the seafront. So it's pretty much swimming territory for the horses all the way around that track. So I remember AP McCoy once famously said, "There's heavy, and then there's Foss heavy." So that's how bad it can get. But they
It looked
amazingly
really nice. It
But
looked
it
so
looked
nice
really
before they
lovely.
started racing on it. I thought,
It's a
oh, damn,
rest.
it's great. And then they started running on it, and it was just like, bloody hell! Like this is
Norcal and Flippers job, I think.
horrendous ground. It was horrific to watch them lolloping across the finish line there at about a mile an hour, if that, and just nurse them home. Shocking.
Yeah, so I think even though it was good the race was saved, I don't think we learned anything really, because there were, I think, 6 runners, 2 finished, 3 fell, 1 brought down another one. So the winner was the favourite, and he won well enough. But I wouldn't take the form too literally from that race, I don't think.
Yeah, it's like
So
watching
that was
Skittles
a
ring.
novice chase. So what does that mean in terms of age?
Yeah, so there's no generally speaking, there's no age restrictions other than I think you have to be a 4-year-old because you can't run over fences as a 3-year-old. What you typically find is it's younger horses because you're a novice for a season. Generally speaking, once you've won a race, you lose your novice status at the end of that season. Some horses, if they don't win a race, can be what's called a second season novice, so they still qualify for novice races in the future. But it just gives horses that first season over hurdles, so you'll have novice hurdles, and then the following season, if they want to go over fences, they'll have novice chases, which is over fences, and it just gives those horses less opposition against like-minded, inexperienced types before they go into the old seasoned pros, and gives them a chance to just build up a bit of experience ahead of that. And then when you've got the graded races, they're generally the better quality horses coming to the top of the sport.
The last one I know as well was the Moscow Flyer, which was obviously over in Ireland.
Yeah, so I mean that historically has been a bit of a pointer to Cheltenham for the Supreme, as you mentioned, Duncan. That's where we're all focused on now. And the first race of the festival gets the tapes underway, and the big rule that follows is the Supreme Novices Hurdles, one of my favourite races of the meeting. Willie Mullins will send one of his better horses to that, and he's often got the favourite in the Supreme Novice. And so it proved again. He had Salvatore Monday, who was probably not that impressive in winning, but won, and then was cut even shorter for favouritism for the Supreme. So that probably tells you a lot about those in behind him at the moment. Again, Paul Townend was saying the ground wasn't great, and he was struggling to jump out of it. But he hadn't raced since the previous May, and apparently he was fresh as a daisy. So, you can imagine a lot of that pent-up kind of enthusiasm hasn't got onto the track for a while, probably blown away the cobwebs. So if you were being optimistic, you would maybe say he'd improve for it. But if you were taking a literal view, you would say he isn't going to be in the top 4 in a Supreme Novices Hurdle based on what he did on Sunday. But I don't know if you had a different view, Butters.
No, I think I was kind of the same. I mean, the one that I kind of took from the race actually was the one, I think it was the other Mullins one of the 2 that were in the race, which was, I think it's currently the third favourite for the Supreme. It was the JP horse. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. But I mean, he seemed to get absolutely in the four-way battle going down towards the last, over the top, and then he's been absolutely slaughtered in running there. But then he stayed on afterwards. So at the prices, when you look at them, like you said, I think the Salvador Mundi's been cut from fives, I think it was, with some places to 7-2, which again, you don't know what's going to happen over the next few months before we get to Cheltenham, but no doubt that shortens at some stage. But I would say out of the two, the JP horse would probably be the one to take away from the race at a price. So that's it so far. But I think there's still so much to look at yet. So I wouldn't be jumping in on that at all.
Wait till the day.
Yeah, exactly that.
All right, so a few races to talk about then. So in terms of news, has there been any big news, anything going on in the racing world in the last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about the abandonments. That's kind of an ongoing theme at the minute. Hopefully the weather looks like it's improving, so the PHA just needs to learn its lesson from the first Saturday in January.
What can you do? I mean, you want jumps racing, you want, all weather is fine, but it's not your race, is it?
Yeah,
the irony has been, when you look at the all weather, you've had two abandonments on that as well.
Yeah,
recently.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think some of the criticism has been the timing of the announcements of the abandonments and inspections.
Oh, right, okay. What, they
Very
last
late
minute?
today. And
the
the
one
one
the other day that was abandoned like 5 or 10 minutes before it was supposed to start.
Yeah.
It's like, at least Sandown, which we were supposed to be going to like the other weekend,
yeah,
we got notified like literally first thing in the morning. So
yeah.
no one had made a trip anywhere. Thankfully, I only lived 20 minutes down the road.
Sorry,
from the
so
place.
5-10 minutes before the first race?
Yeah. Then
right,
Musselburgh had called an inspection. I don't know if had they passed the inspection at the time, or they
think
wanted the
they-
jockeys
I
to go
think-
out on track and have a look.
I think it was the third inspection.
Yeah,
And I think
And they called
one of the challenges is the timings of it. I think the other thing is too many cooks. So, they have kind of a BHA official was supposed to be there, but they also have the on-course clerk, race stewards. But then you get invariably trainers, jockeys, maybe even owners coming and poking a stick in the ground and saying, oh, I don't fancy it. But someone says, oh, well, I would race on this. So it's kind of, it needs to be a little bit more kind of objective and
Yeah, exactly.
sophisticated than just...
I get it. They don't want to make an early decision and get it wrong and then feel like they could race,
Yeah.
but then at the same time, you've got to think about hundreds of thousands of people getting to the race as well.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, I've got a bone to pick with Sandown when we were supposed to be going. They said earlier in the week they have the ability to put frost covers on the whole track. Now, not all tracks have got that ability because you can imagine the manpower that takes to put. It's literally like fleece sheeting across every strip of grass.
Oh,
that
wow.
race.
Amazing.
It would take a full day pretty much to do
It's
that.
like putting it on your windscreen in the morning.
Well, exactly, and it works better than a warm bag of water. But they elected not to do that because they felt confident enough that it wasn't going to get too frosty. So they only just did it in the worst areas, like in the shaded areas and around the jumps themselves. And then, sure enough, the frost, which you could see in the forecast, did materialise. And of course, they called it off. So it's hard, you can't stop the weather, but there's more they can be doing to help out. I think.
Just make it cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other topical news item recently, after seeing the new line absolutely bolt up on the snaff in the Challow Hurdle over the Christmas period, a very impressive winner. Darren Yates, who is, let's say, a colourful owner, splits opinion.
baffled by his pick of horses that he purchases.
Famously, he spent a lot of money on Black Lion just to run in the National. And
Okay.
amongst the
400,
others,
was it 300 grand or something? Maybe
How
more.
much?
400 to
How
500
much?
potentially.
It's about
What, to
300k.
run the race?
Just to run in the race.
Just
that
to
was.
run it.
Oh, just to run
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah, and then he didn't make the track too often after that. He had finally, for the first time, a Grade 1 horse. Was interviewed on ITV afterwards doing handstands and was basically saying this is the best horse I've ever had and I can't wait for Cheltenham and wouldn't give him up for the world. Was it 2 days later he sold him?
Yeah, literally. JP rings up and goes, "Want to buy your horse? How much?" He sold for, I think they said between 750 and £1 million or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
probably going to be $1 million, I'd say. But
Yeah.
apparently he's got a little Brucey bonus in the deal, so maybe if he wins at Cheltenham he gets a kickback.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
I mean, I wouldn't suggest that he couldn't win at Cheltenham. I'd say. I mean, Dan Skelton came out and said it's the best horse he thinks he's ever trained. So
yeah.
it's pretty
Okay.
pretty impressive.
Indeed, and then I think the only other thing, just to touch on was the chairman of the BHA, Joe Suarez-Smith.
British Horse Racing Association.
Authority.
Sorry.
Which is quite ironic, and we won't dive into it now. Maybe we will on another pod, but they are supposedly the regulator, but they are toothless in their authority of what they can actually do.
All right, well, we'll hold that topic for next
Not like the FA, where they can just hand out punishments left, right, centre,
Okay.
and FFP charges and stuff like that. Unfortunately, they don't have as much power as you think they do. But anyway, he's obviously the top of the shop, and he's had a lot of his betting accounts restricted, and even his Betfair account was banned for, I think it was 9 or 10 days. So he's now in the press saying this is not great, but all us mug punters have been moaning about it for years and saying that we're having betting restrictions or account closures, or people. There's so many people I've seen on Twitter that have won good money, and then all of a sudden they're trying to get paid out, and all of the betting
This is
companies
interesting.
pick one out.
So he had his own Betfair account suspended for how
Yeah.
long?
Well, I think it was about 9 or 10 days. He's quoted as saying,
Oh, wow.
and then obviously he's fought to get it. Probably his name has helped to
And that's due
unrestrict
to
it.
like affordability, is it? Or
Yeah. So it's one of the biggest things, and we'll probably do a deeper dive on it separately, but
Yeah.
it's one of the biggest things that's affecting everyday punters, because basically if you start to win, or if you show a profitable pattern, you know, the clamps come down, and it's all of a sudden they've got a new stick to beat you with, which is, well, can you check, we need to check you can afford to lose this money or win this money. And then you're having to send P45s and bank statements and
okay.
wage slips and all the rest of it, which feels a bit invasive in a modern society.
Well,
like
I
that.
guess it's a good thing because they're trying to control the risk for people that maybe can't control their own risk. But
Yeah.
if you've shown profit and loss on your own account that can cover the risk, then
Yeah. But I think that people's problem with it is they don't ask for this stuff at the start. It's only when you start to win.
yeah, yeah.
So, you know, he's now made the news because it's happened to him, but it's happening to all of us regularly. I know many of my friends do.
Not me. I don't think they worry about £1 each way.
No, I think that'll take you all day long. But if one of them pops, mate,
When I hit that big win, I'll tell you they're going to come for me.
Put the money in the mattress.
yeah, cash is king.
Good. Okay, so next section, Steward's Inquiry of the Week. We had debates of what we should call this, but we've gone with Steward's Inquiry. Maybe in later episodes we'll talk about what the Plan B and Plan C was. But this is basically something that hasn't covered themselves in exact glory. It could be a jockey, a ride, something someone said, a punter, but something that's really stood out for us over the last few weeks. So what have you guys got for Steward's Inquiry of the Week?
I'll go with the first one on this album. We kind of were debating this as to whether or not it sat under the Steward's Inquiry. It's not a bad ride or anything like that. It was more of a quite insane news story, though. Is it James Bowen? Oh,
Yeah.
It was, wasn't it? I think it was yesterday. It was the weekend, sorry. And he was on a horse going over, I think maybe the last, in a chase or one of the fences. And the horse has fallen. And normally, feet will come out the stirrups and then they kind of get bowled off, and that'll be that. They just kind of roll away and, you know, hopefully, touch wood, they get up immediately and everything's fine. But his foot got stuck in the stirrups. And as the horse has kind of slid, it's then rolled over him, onto him. So he's stuck under this horse.
Is that
and
that article you
it's in such a
sent, which
position.
is stuck under a horse?
Yeah, so he's literally lying under a horse, like under a half-ton animal, and he's just lying there, like can't move, can't get out. And I think another jockey after the race has kind of come over or to try and help him. They've managed to lever him out because they said they had to sedate the horse as well before they could do this, because they were worried if they tried to move the horse, the hooves of the horse were like so close to his face, he was like, it could boot me and that will be my head gone. So they had to sedate the horse. The horse was fine, but they had sedated the horse so they could move it, get him out. And then the ironic thing is, the next race, he got on the horse and won. So
That's
he's
mental.
gone from 0 to hero very, very quickly.
So horse was fine, got up after being
Yeah.
sedated, was fine.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bruised, but okay. And then the jockey got on and won the next race. That's mental.
Just shows how hardcore the jockeys are when you look at it. Like, something like that happens and he just gets up, cracks on. 20 minutes later, he's on another horse when he rides a winner.
I mean, how much do horses weigh? Like a ton?
Half a
Half a
ton,
ton.
500 kilos. So, yeah, not something you could shift easily, let's put it that way. So, yeah, no, I just thought that was quite an awesome story for James as well, for Steward's Inquiry of the Week from me. I know El's got a few as well.
What have you got, El? Come on, what have you got?
Oh, come on, who do we really want to bring into the stewards room this week? It's got to be our old friend Tomo.
I mean,
He's
commentating genius, the man.
So, so the benefit of the tape, could you explain who Tomo is and why he's a big deal?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's in his mid-70s now. His full name Derek Thompson, but he goes by Tomo as his nickname. He was one of the mainstays on Channel 4 racing going way back into the 90s. Might have even been late 80s. Certainly when I was a kid and Dad had the horse racing on, you'd see him. And he was kind of a presenter, then sort of broadcaster turned commentator in his later years. He doesn't really have much TV work anymore. If you've ever seen the famous clip of, "Oh, you've been joined by a beautiful man," a beautiful woman, and then it turns out they go to the interview and it turns out it was a man. And Bob Cooper turns back to Derek and goes, "It's a man, actually, Derek." Probably try and find that clip. But he's got so many of these capers where he's just like having your granddad around. He's just making mistakes left, right, and centre. And his commentary in recent years has got more and more peculiar, to say the least. And calling photo finish after every horse has crossed the line. Photo is his famous phrase. But there was one race at Ayr recently, just after the Christmas period, where he was really struggling to find what the horse in front was called and kept checking down at his notes. And it was only basically as the horse was about to cross the line, he declared, "And it's come from nowhere," when he literally led all the way up the straight.
It's genius.
All right, let's play the video and
on a word is original.
Yeah.
Towards the final furlong. And still on the far side, we've got still on the far side, we've got on this side, it's Barrett Tablet, but on the far side, it's the one in front at this stage, and it looks like Kevlar. Now, hang on, it's Out of the Woods who's coming through. Hang on, let me just check this. It looks like Out of the Woods has come through from nowhere to win it. Out of the Woods has come out and won it.
Might be some of the best commentary you'll ever hear in your life. It's the point where
it's like if I was commentating on a race, that's exactly how I would sound.
I remember once
he's been doing it 30 odd years, and he's still doing it like that. If you just started, so
in his defence, I remember when Betfair used to go mad with their sponsorship on racecourses. They had a commentary booth or a few commentary booths at Sandown one day, and you could go in and they'd replay the Tingle Creek from the previous year. And they gave you a headset, and you just basically had the colours, and you just had to stare into the screen and just go and commentate. And even I was struggling. So
yeah, right.
It's not easy, but it is his job. So come on, Tomo, do better.
I think that was a very good Stewards Inquiry of the Week. I think both you guys did well there. So, all right, should we get on to myths, big questions, topic of the week? So this is probably the most exciting section from my side, which is where I learn a bit more about horse racing each week. So we'll do a bit of a spotlight topic where we'll focus on maybe questions from our viewers in the future, but obviously we don't have any viewers at the moment because this is our first one, so it'd be questions from me to start with. And yeah, we'll do a bit of a deep dive and maybe some specific questions or myths. For me, the one thing you guys always talk about when you're trying to help me study the race manual, study the race card, is trainers in form, which is also the title of this podcast. So just give me a bit more information around what is trainers in form and why do you look at it?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I'll start by saying it's probably more art than science. There is no kind of.
I've learned that much about horse racing. Yes.
Which is a lot of betting.
Always comes with a disclaimer.
Yeah, because
we'll put that at the bottom. This is not financial advice. Capital is at risk.
Your money at risk. Yeah.
Gamble responsibly. #. Yeah. Because I think Duncan and I tried to actually come up with a formula for trying to narrow down the trainers by how many runners they've had, how many winners they've had, stuff like that. But the problem is you miss the gems. So what we're really looking for is the smaller guys, because everybody could tell if Dan Skelton's in form or Paul Nicholls. But really, they operate at like a 20% strike rate through most of the season. It'll peak and trough a little bit, but they're the best trainers. They've got the best quality. They have the most runners. They can cherry pick the races. So, really, and also they're the shortest in the market invariably. So, what we're looking for is the lesser known guys, the guys that literally have maybe some of them even 5 in a field. I mean, the one guy which we'll come on to talk about, part of the big double I had. He trains in Bude in Cornwall, so he's probably 200 miles from his nearest racecourse, and he literally has a handful of horses in a field. but can still do the job, can still produce a horse on the big day. And you're kind of looking for guys that are less well known, more under the radar. And the other one I looked at had I saw on his website he had 25 horses. So we are, if we wanted to put some kind of limit on it, we are talking about kind of 20 to 30. You know, once you get beyond that, it becomes less of an edge, if that makes sense from a betting perspective. And I suppose I'd try and expand on that as to why is it a thing. Again, there's probably not one golden nugget for why this happens. But I have to credit my old man Dave. He was the one who introduced me to this, and
we'll have him on the pod. We'll have him on the pod.
We'll get him on as a guest for sure, and he could do it better justice, I'm sure. But I mean, he's been going on about this for years, and to be honest, I couldn't care less at the time, because I wanted to look at all the trainers I knew, and I wanted to look at the big races of the day, and it's like, well, that's where everyone else's attention is, and that's where all the money is. So you're not gonna nick a few quid on your big Saturday race with your big name trainer. It's your small Tom, Dick and Harry kind of scribbling away in the background. Those are the guys that make it pay, because no one's looking at them. So they are going to be double figure prices, and you can have quite a bit on, and no one's going to suddenly go, oh, there's a gamble going on here. And it was only because he kept having massive wins. Now, he is betting 10p in pound stakes and stuff, so it didn't seem like a big win, but I kept thinking, how on earth have you picked that? How on earth have you picked that? And then over maybe the last 2 or 3 years, I've started to look at it more closely. And, you know, if you think about it...
So you started to have big wins on this?
Well, no, he did, and then...
He did, okay.
He's been doing it for years, and then I started to try and dabble in it, and then a couple of times it came off, and I started to think, hang on a minute, there's something to this trainers in form theory, and you got to think, well, why would a smaller stable just... So one of my friends, similar to you, Si, he likes his horse racing, but wouldn't necessarily know the detail. He was like, why would a small stable suddenly hit form? What, aren't they always trying to hit form?
I was trying to explain this to Sarah, my wife, earlier. I was like, oh yeah,
How did that go?
Which would have been interesting for you to see and record probably, but she was like, why is that important? And I was trying to like think of something similar, like, I don't know, like a football club, right? You know, a football manager that's doing really well, that all of their players are doing well in maybe their respective countries or whatever. Like, there is something around the process, the recovery, the nutrition, all of that. And in my mind, I would have thought it'd be exactly the same in horse racing with trainers. Because like when it works, whether that's the hay or the feed or whatever, or the recovery, the training methods, like it just all works.
Exactly, and like in any sport, you can't stay at your peak for the whole season.
Yeah.
You know, you will have better, and you're dealing with equine athletes, so they can't even talk to you when there's a problem. You have to kind of guess if they're okay, and they hit the track, you think they're okay, and then they've got a snotty nose, or the bloods are not quite right, or something like that. And basically, it can be down to a whole matter of factors, whether it be health of the yard, generally, like they might have had problem with the feed, like you say, or to be honest, a lot of the time, if they've got small numbers, they can kind of bring them along as a string much more together. And really, a lot of it is about fitness as well. And those smaller yards, you know, you're winning £3,000 a race or £4 or £5 a race maximum. That, you know, they might win 5 races a season. That isn't going to pay the bills. So I'm not suggesting they all do this, but a lot of them clearly, what's called laying a horse out. You know, they'll not have it fit, then have it tuned up to the minute. And to do that, they need to train it with other horses to get them all kind of on the same level. And then that's when they strike. And then they're probably having a bit of a bet on it as well, you know. Yeah. And if you're having £1,000 each way at 16 to 1, you're all of a sudden, which they probably would do. All of a sudden, you pay for Christmas and a bit more. Yeah. So that's kind of why it happens. Duncan, you've probably got your own views.
So obviously, yeah. What would you say, Duncan? Because obviously you do this as well.
I mean, I totally agree with what El says, and it's something I've kind of started. I'm kind of almost like the third in the chain of picking it up.
That's the pattern off.
Yeah, exactly. But I totally.
By the way, I'm fourth.
You're fourth. I'll pass it on to you, and it'll get diluted. It'll be like Chinese whispers each time. It'll get slowly shitter and shitter, the context of it all.
I actually have no idea what it is. That's why I'm asking.
But no, I think and we said about a formula, but I think there is kind of there must be a way. That there is a way. I think if you're looking at like a trainer, you know, and I know El that obviously you've seen your mountains and mountains of pages of trainers that you'll have open on your phone and things, so you can kind of look through and see who's in form, who's doing what. And it's not just looking for like I think the other key that you may have not said is the trainer may not have had a winner, but say they've had like 5 runners over the past couple of weeks, they may have had like 2 placed at big odds. So El's going in and looking at that and going, oh, okay, so he's had like he or she has had 2 horses placed at like 20-1 or bigger, maybe, or 16s or something like that. So maybe they're starting to hit a bit of form. So you then take notice, and if they've got certain horses that you'd probably look at and go, this horse has got absolutely no bloody chance, you're going to put a few quid on it just to see, because it could well come in. And I think I think the greatest example that we've had was on New Year's Day, which turned out to be a bloody great New Year.
I mean, I wasn't there, but I could feel the sense of elation through WhatsApp. I think I'll just add before we get onto that is, I think this, you've mentioned this, both of you, a few times, is once you've been through this process, you don't just put 10p or 50p or a quid or whatever, like, once you've looked at it, you go in with it like a proper bet, you know, like, and back yourself.
Yeah.
When it pays off, then it does pay off, like New Year's Day at, that was Cheltenham, was it?
It was, the races weren't at Cheltenham, but we were at Cheltenham.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Just to be clear though, again, everyone's different. I know you said there, Matt, like, you know, you're not betting like a pound or anything like that, but it's all relevant, all relative to what people want to bet. So, you know, I kind of have a system for what I do. But El will have a totally different system and more money on than I will. But it just depends on what you're willing to kind of
of course,
at the end of the day.
I think the theory is
ratio. You'd be more.
Yeah, don't be put off by the bigger prices.
Yeah,
you know, I used to bet smaller on bigger prices and bigger on smaller prices, but that's totally irrational actually when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's about your confidence in what you think the price should be versus what the price is.
Yeah.
And if you're higher confident than the market, then that's your chance to strike, really. Just finally on that, on the process. So Duncan's absolutely right. I think people just kind of look at who's had winners, but it's probably even better if they've had places, because less people have noticed. So I mean, I'm a bit of an anorak, so I will go through every result every day and pick out the smaller guys and just keep a log. And then once I think they've kind of had their spell, if you call it that, I'll chuck them off the list and add new people. But also the Racing Post will only give you the last 14 days, and that's what they call their form. But the guy that had that winner looking for Larry, you know, he hadn't had a runner for 14 days, but I knew, because I had him on my list, that his last runner was a winner. So as far as I'm concerned, until he shows me he's not in form anymore, he is. So that's another way to kind of get around what you're presented with on the Racing Post. Is
so how many? Okay, yeah, so that's interesting. So you were talking about them they're peaking for a certain race, and that's when they go all in. So I guess the question I would have is, what would you call a peak? And maybe that's a separate podcast, but like you know, like how you're looking further back, like more than 2 weeks, but you're looking for like one or two wins or 1 and 2 places up until a main race, basically, and then you're like, right, let's have a look.
Yeah, I mean, ideally and most commonly, you'll see it over the space of 7 to 10 days. You'll see the best results come in, and then they'll start to have horses not finish as strongly. But when you're talking about 5 horses in the field, he can't run them all at the same time. So, and this guy was training in Cornwall, so his nearest racecourse pretty much is Exeter or Newton Abbot. So he had one at Exeter, and then the next one went at Exeter. So that's probably a bit of an outlier. But generally speaking, I'll keep them on for a couple of weeks. But it's more about how the results do. So if they've got so few horses, they're just not running them, I will chance that they're still okay. And, you know, I might be wrong half the time, but like it proved on New Year's Day, if you trust the process, then it can make it pay.
Yeah, exactly. What was that one we had on Ascot? Was that Trainers in Form? Was that something else?
No, that was podcast in Form.
Okay.
That was I mean, obviously the other thing is to if you keep your ear to the ground and you kind of hear a trainer say, "Oh, I'm going to target this race," way in advance. You know, you can.
It wasn't Wizard of I'm thinking of, El. Sorry, it's the one that we had recently.
Yes.
At Laura Horsfall. Yeah.
That was the one where we were like, we had a big win. You cleared out all the bookies, and we're like, let's go out, you know, for a few drinks, and we couldn't spend the cash. It was all card only.
Couldn't give it away, mate.
It's crap, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a classic Trainers in Form. She had a place in the week previous,
Right.
The horse was 33 to 1. So, I just had a tenner each way and happy days.
Or what would be the 3 things that you would have to qualify that is a trainer in form?
So people have their own interpretations because trainers in form isn't a new thing. People in the media talk about it. So-and-so's in good form, so-and-so's in good form. For me, for this, it's smaller yards, and ideally the smaller the better. Now, I wouldn't put a number on it. I'm going to give roughly kind of 20 to 30 horses max. You can maybe go up to 40, but I'm not talking about...
You know that though, unless you're going in depth into this. So
I
people
wouldn't-
and anyone that listens to this, you're not going to really know. You're not going to go in depth into that.
No, so I wouldn't focus on how big they are, but I would just say the smaller, more obscure, less you've heard of them yards.
Lesser known yards.
Lesser known yards, yeah.
Yeah.
So stay away from the top 10. It would be a good start.
Okay, lesser known yards.
Yeah.
And then what else?
Well, I would say, the good news is for the listeners is that I'm going to be doing the hard work and posting all the selections for this process on our social media channels. We've got an X account at Tailed Off Pod, same handle on Instagram. So they won't have to do the hard work. I'll be doing that. And we'll see how we get on over the coming weeks. But basically my process is to go through all the results, find the smaller yards, and ideally when they've had bigger priced places or wins, that's when I put them in the notebook. And I think the final thing I would say is when I've got that list, I don't just back every single one on that list because I probably would be poor quite quickly.
Yeah.
I then would avoid if they've got runs in twofold, if they've got runs in novice or maiden races, which for the smaller yards, let's be honest, they're not trying to win. They're trying to introduce a horse to the racecourse, get it qualified for a handicap mark, strike further down the line. So therefore, in the results, if they've had runners at 100 to 1 well beaten in those races, I don't count that as serious. I only look at their, generally speaking, handicap results.
Yeah.
That'd be my other kind of pointer.
Yeah.
Just quickly, who was the name of that female trainer that won at Ascot that we had?
Laura Horsfall.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just thought it was another one. I was looking at for Hereford just now. Just kind of give an example of it.
Always on.
Yeah, always got to have a
Or
look.
anything else, Duncan? Would you say that you follow the same sort of approach? Would you?
Yeah, I think for me the other thing I'd add in is because I don't go into necessarily anywhere near as much detail as Elle does, as I'm still very much, I'd say, a juvenile when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Not precocious anyway.
Yeah, exactly that. But if people have the Racing Post app, which I think most people probably do, but if you don't,
Guilty.
it's worth downloading. Get downloading it. You can then go into looking at each race. You can look onto the trainer and see how many runners they've had in the last 2 weeks. And again, maybe this is something we just put up. We can do a tutorial of what how we look at this stuff, so
That'd be
people
good.
understand. I'd have a look and see how many runners they've had in the last couple of weeks. Like Elle said, if they've got 20 to 30 horses, you don't expect them to have many runners. So I'm looking at maybe 1 to say 6 or 7 horses in the last 2 weeks that have run. And then I'm looking at the percentage of either wins or places they may have had. So it'll show the percentage of wins, and you're looking at if they've had five runners and 1 win, so 20%. But because they're a small yard, you're like, okay, that could be something worth looking at. And then, Elle said, you're looking at if it's a handicap race or not, where they'll probably be aiming it and targeting it at that race.
So I was going to ask, would you focus on that percentage then? So you would, if you qualified with size of yard and stuff, you'd look at that percentage a little bit and see around 20% mark.
100%. Yeah, because you can see Elle will pick out one, you'll flag it and go, oh, this trainer's 1 winner from 2, so they've got a 50% strike rate at that point in the last 2 weeks. So instantly you're going to be like, okay, well, there's a potential that that next horse could go in because they're obviously hitting a bit of form. Like Elle said, I think it starts to get a little bit, you've got to read between the lines a bit once you kind of have learned and understood it a bit. So I'd probably suggest for people that are kind of learning this now is maybe don't put any bets on as such, but just kind of have a look and do some research for a week or 2, just to kind of see and think, okay, if I backed this, would it have won? And kind of go through it like that. I think that's the best and safest way of doing it without spending any money as such, and it still can be a bit of a laugh with doing it that way.
Nice. Awesome. I mean, I find that pretty useful. And let's talk about the proof in the pudding, shall we? So what happened then with this bet on New Year's Day?
Yeah, well, as I say, my process is kind of in the evening before the next day's racing, go through the results, update my list.
That's an understatement, by the way.
Yeah. And
Do
then
not do anything before a big race day with Elliot.
I've asked for tips.
yeah, every day. And then I just I found this one. I mean, looking for Larry was the one I was more confident in because the trainer was the 1 from 1 is the absolute OG of this. When a small trainer is 1 from 1, you start to get warm fuzzy feelings. It's kind of like, here we go, we're on. And it was the same trainer sending the horse back to Exeter, where he's, obviously it's his best sort of local course, so he's got a good record there relatively. And he looked like he had a good chance in the race, and he was, about 12-1, so I was quite confident in that. The other one was probably more proof of the pudding because I couldn't see any hope for this horse. I remember saying it to you, Duncan. I said, look, I'm on this one because the trainer, Tom Gretton, only got about 20 horses. He'd had, I think, a winner previously in a handful of runs at quite a decent price. But the horse's form, it's a French name, you'll see it on the screenshot. Don't ask me to pronounce it, but it didn't seem to have any chance. But that's probably the bit I learned from Dad, is that I used to get the list, put my own view on top of it, and then get rid of a few. And the amount of times I got rid of a few that would win, it's basically don't back them all blind, but sometimes if the process says they're in form, you've got to take a leap of faith. And again, I think this was another one, 12-1. But both horses got absolute. So then that's the other kind of key tip for this. If you're going to do it, get on early, because if the small guys and they've told a few of the mates down the pub and all the stable lads have had a few quid on, the prices can disproportionately crash the next day.
This is the thing that blows my mind, and then we need to do this in another future episode, is like how the odds are really affected and impacted with hearsay basically, and rumours and what people are saying down the pub. Like, it's mad to think, but I guess that's how the stock market works, really, to on a bigger scale. So
we'll talk about the and drifters another day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think I was a little bit excited when he realised that he'd had it in a double.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's what obviously tipped it. Over the edge, I had it in a double, which I must admit, in all the bets I had New Year's Day, I probably forgot that. So it was a nice surprise.
I mean, I can't. The amount of times I've been with both of you, and you're like, "Oh, I've had this in a double," or "Oh, I've had this online like 4 times," and it's like quadrupled my. I'm like,
hashtag gamble responsibly again.
It doesn't happen often.
Awesome. Right. Before we wrap up, then let's talk about the next weekend or the next few days of racing. So what we saying then? So what's coming up? What would you recommend? I think we've got 3 or 4 recommendations.
Yeah, again, I think I was probably very, very keen and excited again to discuss the Winter Million.
Yeah. So I think they've rebranded it now to the Berkshire Million, which is giving it a bit of,
Oh, the Berkshire, the Royal County.
That, mate.
Yeah, I'm interested now. You have my attention.
So very briefly, this was a concept that ARC, who are there's 2 big racecourse groups in the UK, the Jockey Club, which most people would have heard of, that do Cheltenham and Sandown and Aintree, and then the other guys basically do a lot of the other tracks. And they had this concept to do a bit of a mini festival in the winter at Lingfield, because they've got a flat all-weather course there. So they have jumps Friday, all-weather Saturday, jumps Sunday. The problem is that jumps course is like a bog. There's a few bogs around in the country, and that's one of them. You struggle to get jump racing on at the best times. So I think they were kind of thinking, we need another option for this. And then, lo and behold, in December, the return of jumps racing to Windsor after 20 years, and living a short walk away was an absolute pleasure to go. And Matt, you were there as well.
I live 15 minutes away from Windsor. Elliot lives in Windsor, and Duncan, you're not too far away from Windsor, so it's like homecoming.
So now they've decided to move this whole fixture to Windsor and incorporate Ascot in the middle of it. So we've got Friday at Windsor, Saturday at Ascot, Sunday at Windsor. If you want to do all 3 days from as little as 40 quid, it seems like
it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Mini Cheltenham Festival.
No entry price there, yeah.
Just quickly on that, I've just seen from the BHA tweet from earlier on, I think it was like 5 this evening, the Hampton Novice Chase Grade 2 is at Windsor on Sunday now.
Oh,
it's been moved there.
Off the press.
There you go. Hot off the press.
Also, this is a news pod, hot off the press.
Yeah.
News.
We need a sound effect there, Matt. Just like
we'll do
breaking news.
Breaking news. We'll have a little run.
That probably means I've got to get up half an hour earlier to get to the first race now.
Yeah.
We'll put that to one side. But yeah, okay, that's good news. That that was a race that was lost recently.
Yeah,
Well,
so that's now going there instead. And I think there was another one that's going to Ayr. There's an additional fixture at Ayr on Monday.
So that's where we'll focus for the key races for the weekend. So we got and a lot of it's on ITV as well. So we've got ITV racing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is a bit of a treat for those who just want to sit in front of the box and have a few punts. Friday's card at Windsor is probably more kind of good handicaps, but there is a Grade 2 novice chase which is a newest race called the Lightning Novice Chase. What's I suppose a little bit confusing is we've got two horses at the top of the market that are owned by the same people. We've got Messrs Ferguson,
Interesting,
and his mates Jed Mason and Fred Dunn and John Hales. And it's hard to know which of those two are going to turn up. Do we think both are going to turn up, Buzz?
I'm just having a look at it now, funnily enough. I can't see why they would. Well, unless they want to run them both at the same time to then see, right, which direction are we going to take with these. But I'm sure they always thought Caldwell Potter could be like a 3-miler, and I'm baffled, sorry to get into it already, but the prices. Caldwell Potter at 4 to 5 on, wank price as far as I'm concerned. Noda Sue, who we backed at Cheltenham last time, I absolutely hosed up on the Schnaff, and that's 11 to 8. And well, my money would be there immediately out of the two if you gave me the choice.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I think Caldwell Potter's been a hype horse. He came out of Gordon Elliott Yard, was one of the most expensive horses ever bought in training by
600 grand, 640k.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And then he's taken a long time to get back to the track for Paul. Did okay on his chase debut, was nice enough, but I wouldn't be getting too carried away. And as you say, probably wants a bit further in time. Loda Sue's gone and done it at 2 miles. I think he got put in his place, didn't he? But you'll have to remind me. Oh no, he didn't run that day, did he? He's won all of his chase starts, hasn't he?
No, he's won all his chase, 3 from 3
Yeah,
so far.
I think he was potentially going to go for a race that I would have fancied him to be turned over in. But they've kept him safe and away for this race. He does carry a £5 penalty, so that that's something to think about. But at the anti-post prices, I would be siding with him. He's got
technically, though, this could be something to explain to people. So if you looked at the ratings, and I know it's obviously not because it's a Grade 2 and it's not actually a handicap race, Loda Sue's rated £4 higher than Caldwell Potter, so technically it's only £1 out from where they would technically be. So, I'd still have Loda Sue though over Caldwell Potter. I haven't seen anything from Caldwell Potter that's made me think, bloody hell, this is a really decent horse. Whereas Loda Sue I have.
Next race, what have we got?
So that's on the Friday. Yeah.
That's 1:50 on Friday.
And that's just remind me, that's Windsor.
Yeah, the Lightning Novices Chase at Windsor.
Yeah.
So
and we smooth get Friday done in Windsor, and then we head on over to Ascot.
Yeah, and then this is. Go on.
I was just going to call out one before you get to, because I know you're going to probably go to the Clarence House. But I was just going to make a mention to, again, it's a bit more of a Cheltenham thing, but the first race at Ascot, I wouldn't bet on anything specifically, and the prices obviously aren't out yet, but the juvenile hurdle. So this is horses that could potentially be going to the Triumph. So this is I think it's the first race on the last day of Cheltenham, the Gold Cup day. Where you have the juvenile horses like 4-year-olds that will go there for the hurdles race. And there's one that Nicky Henderson has got, a classic Nicky, for the Donnellys. And it's come over from France, and it's already favourite for the race in Cheltenham. So it might just be an interesting one to see where that goes. We'll see how it goes, on Saturday. Because if it smashes in and hoses in, it'll just get shorter in the market again.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so one to look out for then.
Yeah.
Word of caution on that. Nicky was on Nick Luck's one of his daily podcasts last week and was basically a bit shocked that was so short in the market, basically because of the name and the trainer. And he thinks he's going to be a chaser in time and probably not one to be winning these.
I certainly wouldn't be getting on at the price. And like you say, I think he's baffled that it's gone into favouritism already.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, well then the feature of the whole weekend really is one of the few Grade 1s we have over 2 miles. The previous one being the Tingle Creek at Sandown. Then we come on to the Clarence House. It's quite a nice programme for the top 2 milers, and this race used to be kind of a really good limited handicap where some great horses are running it over the years. But since it's been a Grade 1, there's probably smaller fields, but we've seen some absolute heroes running this race over the years. The likes of under So, and of course Shishkin famously got the better of was it Energumene a few years ago, and Energumene's back for more, and once again taking on one of Nicky. So Nicky and Willie have had a few clashes in recent times over this side of the sea. You wouldn't see Nicky going to Ireland before Cheltenham's, but Willie's just got so much talent. He's having to spread him over here, which is good for us as fans on this side of the sea. I think all being well, these two are set to line up. So we've got Energumene, who has been there and done it, champion chase winner previously, and we've got the kind of up and comer, although he has been around a little while. He hasn't quite done it at Cheltenham yet. John Bon, beaten in the Supreme, beaten in the Arkle, and now he sort of is bidding to go one better in the champion chase. And this is a fascinating clash, and the market currently has John Bon odds on, which is fair enough. He's got the younger legs, he's more progressive. This season he's done the business. I was at Sandown when he won the Tingle Creek quite comfortably. But I don't think this is a walkover. Now, Energumene's 11, he's obviously had a host of injury problems, but he looked quite good on his comeback. I think he was entitled to need that, and he was about to brush aside Banbridge, who was coming with a good challenge at the last before he unchipped his rider. And then, of course, Banbridge has gone and won the big race over Christmas, the King George at Kempton, and they were well clear of the rest at that time. So I think there's plenty of spark left in Energumene. He definitely it's bound to be soft ground at Ascot, and he's obviously gone there and run well previously, only being run down late on by Shishkin. So I think at the prices, as much as I do love John Bon, he's a bit of an old favourite of mine, I wouldn't be so surprised if Energumene could give him something to think about on Saturday.
What is the price of Energumene? Sorry, I can't see it on there. I'm
sure I saw 5-2 earlier. I haven't got the live prices in front of me, but
I would agree with you, El. I think, like you say, from a value perspective, Energumene's the one you go for. But I just really want to see John Bon hose up again and actually go into Cheltenham, and he's already favourite, I think, for the racing there. And I'd just love to see him actually break the monkey on his back, as it were, and win at Cheltenham. But
yeah, well, I'll take the 5-2 Energumene. You take the 8-11 John Bon, and we'll see who's happy next week, shall we?
I'm telling you now, I will not be taking it. It's all that for a game of toy soldiers.
Right, before we wrap up, one more recommendation tip. What would you say?
Well, I think we have got a good race again back at Windsor on Sunday, the Fleur de Lis Chase, but it's really hard to know who's going to that. Jerry Colomb was going to come over from Ireland. Gordon Elliott's now ruled him out. He says he needs more time. So it's probably not worth talking too much about that race till we see the decorations. And the other kind of big race on Saturday in the afternoon is at 2:30 at Haydock. We've already spoken about how bad the ground can be at Haydock. You're going to need to be absolutely swimming home in there. It's already heavy, and it's always heavy at Haydock, let's be honest. But we've got someone that likes it, and it's Royal Guy. He's won 5 times at the course. He won this race twice. He famously won the Betfair Chase again in November, downing Grey Dawling, who I was on with some confidence, so that was quite a painful watch.
I was on Guy.
Yeah, well done, after time.
Only time I've actually got one over on
you. Yeah, but he's currently 5-2 in the anti-post markets, and I think people are basically suggesting that, well, it's a handicap, which means he has to give a lot of weight away. But he did it last year, and it's just such a home fixture for him. He loves Haydock. He loves that trip. He loves bad ground. These are really, really inferior horses against him. He's a dual Grade 1 winner. I would say Royal Guy would be the one for me at 5-2.
Yeah, back that as well.
The only one if that isn't your kind of cup of tea is maybe Major Dundee, because he won the Midlands National. He does stay and he does handle bad ground. But if Royal Guy does turn up, which he's meant to, most of these horses are going to be out of the handicap, and that's going to be tough for any of them, I think.
We should do a bit of a recap as well and see how they got on next week.
Or you might not.
So let's wrap up.
It might not be next week.
Yeah, that's true. There might not be next week. On that note, let's wrap up, guys. Thank you so much. This is our first one. I've actually learnt a lot already in the first one, which shows I haven't been listening to you for the last 10 years or whatever. But thank you all for listening as well, or watching, depending on the platform that you've been tuning in. Let us know with the spotlights as well. So today we covered trainers in form. There's obviously other questions I've got, but we want to hear from you. So do message us at tailedoffpod@gmail.com. I think I got that right. Tailed Off social media as well, so Instagram. I think we've got Twitter. Is that right?
X. Yeah, let's get it right.
Yeah, X. Sorry, X.
Don's listening to everything.
Going to get to copyrights. issue from day one. So yeah, please do message us on that. Like us, subscribe, of course. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Until then, bet smart, bet safe as well, race hard, and try not to be tailed off. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Position. Any power at the last race down. Any power of Thornton in front of the last left. Melody
Right by the far side, they're running up towards the finish, and he's mistaken the winning post. He's mistaken the winning post completely, Roger Loughlin, and Hoyt